Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. You know, the drill. We're going to be taking a look at some company reports today.
That's right. And this time it looks like we're going to be diving into TTK Prestige Limited.
Exactly. You sent over their Q2 FY25 results, which is
Sure.
a pretty interesting mix of hard numbers and like their overall analysis of, where things stand in the economy.
Yeah, their take on the current economic landscape.
Yeah, so by the end of this, we're hoping to help you, to get a quick grasp on how TTK Prestige is doing, what kind of challenges they're dealing with.
And what their future might look like.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
first up, let's take a look at how they've set the stage. They've given us kind of a global and Indian economic snapshot, right?
Yeah, it seems like they're trying to say, hey, look at this crazy world we're operating in.
It's like, hey, we're trying to sell pressure cookers in this crazy world.
Exactly.
What's the overall vibe?
Globally, I think things are stabilizing a little bit. Inflation is starting to ease up a bit. We see rate cuts in some big economies like the US and UK, but
There's always a but.
yeah, there's always but right, geopolitical tensions are always, kind of lingering. Weird weather's messing things up, and financial markets being their usual crazy
Oh,
selves.
kind of like a pressure cooker itself. Some heat's off, but got to be careful.
Exactly. And speaking of pressure cookers, India's economy is actually looking pretty strong amidst all this. They're projected to grow at a healthy 7 to 7.2% this fiscal year.
Oh,
Yeah, their manufacturing and services sectors are doing well, and they had a good monsoon season, which is really important for their agriculture and rural economy.
okay, that's really good news.
Mm.
But the reports also mentioned something about, rising food prices and how it's kind of putting a damper on people's spending.
Yeah, that's the tricky thing, right? Even if the overall economy is doing okay, if food prices are through the roof,
Yeah, you got to prioritize.
you might think twice about buying that new appliance, and that directly impacts companies like TTK Prestige that are selling those nice-to-have items.
Yeah, those non-essential items that
It's
maybe
very
you can
beautiful.
put off a little bit.
Exactly. So even in a growing economy, you have these pockets of pressure on everyday people, and that impacts companies like TTK Prestige.
And that rolls uphill to them now.
Yeah.
On top of that, they've got their own company-specific challenges. What's making life difficult for TTK right now?
Well, they pointed out a few things in the report. You've got those big e-commerce giants and fancy modern retail stores that are squeezing out the smaller mom and pop shops that TTK relies on.
Hmm.
Then remember the rural market we
Yeah.
talked about with the good monsoon? Well, that same market got hit with a double whammy, microfinance issues and those high food prices we just talked about.
Ouch. Yeah, that's got to hurt.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. And they also mentioned commodity prices. The
Mhm.
cost of the stuff they use to make their products is going up.
Right. So the inputs are more expensive.
Exactly. Raw materials are getting more expensive, and
Yeah.
that's putting a squeeze on their profit margins. It's like trying to make a delicious meal when all the ingredients cost twice as much.
Yeah, your margins are just gone.
Exactly.
So yeah, not smooth sailing for TTK Prestige, but hold on. Even with all of that, they're still growing, believe it or not.
I love it when companies defy the odds.
Let's look at their Q2 performance, the actual numbers.
Let's dive into the nitty-gritty.
Okay, so their domestic sales are up 4.5% from last year, which isn't bad considering everything we just talked about.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah, that brings them to about 695.1 crores. But their exports took a hit, dropping to 13.5 crores from 18.3 crores the previous year.
That's a significant drop.
It is, but the report did mention strong export orders, just that shipments got pushed to the second half of the year. So we'll have to see how that plays out.
Right, we'll have to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, overall, their total sales grew by 3.6%, totaling 708.5 crores. But here's where it gets interesting. Their EBITDA, which basically tells you how much profit they made from their core operations, is down to 95.4 crores. Last year it was 100.2 crores.
They did mention spending a good chunk of change on consultants for some long-term strategic planning. So
Yeah.
I find it interesting that they're, investing the future while facing these immediate challenges.
It's like they're saying, hey, we got to fix the roof while it's raining, but we're also planning an extension for when the sun comes out.
I like that analogy.
Their profit after tax is down too, but they still managed a respectable 4.17 rupees per share, which are their EPS earnings per share.
Not bad.
Not too shabby, but let's break down their sales by product.
Yeah.
What are people actually buying?
Yeah, let's look under the hood and see what's driving their revenue.
So pressure cookers still make up a decent chunk of their sales, but the growth there has slowed down.
Maybe everyone in India already has a pressure cooker.
Maybe, or maybe they're all switching to Instant Pots. I don't know.
Or air fryers. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Maybe we've hit peak pressure cookers and now they're cookware. Like pots and pans is doing well both in Q2 and the first half of the year, which makes sense. People always need those.
The essentials, right?
Exactly, even if they're cutting back on other things.
Those are more resilient to economic wobbles.
Then there's their appliance segment, which is actually their biggest moneymaker. It's still growing, but not as fast as before.
Yeah. That might be the discretionary spending pinch we talked about earlier.
Yeah, if people are worried about food prices, they might hold off on buying that fancy new blender or whatever.
Makes sense.
Now, before we get too gloomy, let's look at some of the positive stuff TTK is doing. First off, they've been reworking their Judge brand, and it's booming double-digit growth there.
It's smart to have different brands catering to different types of customers, right?
Yeah, don't put all your eggs in one basket kind of thing.
Exactly.
Plus, even though the market is tight, they're still collecting payments from retailers on time, which shows they have a good handle on their finances.
Yeah, good financial management is crucial, especially in challenging times.
And get this, they launched 72 new products this quarter.
Wow, that's a lot of new stuff.
That's a lot of new stuff. It shows they're not just sitting around waiting for things to get better.
Yeah, they're being proactive, which is great to see.
Right. And they're also expanding their own retail chain Prestige Exclusive, which is now at 661 stores and contributing a good chunk to their sales.
Having their own stores gives them more control over the shopping experience and lets them connect directly with customers.
Yeah, it's like they're saying, hey, come on and experience the world of TTK Prestige.
Exactly.
And then there's the big move they made, the share buyback. They finished in September. They basically spent a big chunk of cash, 200 crores, to buy back their own stock at 1,200 rupees per share.
Think of it like this. They took some of their shares off the table, which can potentially boost the value of the remaining shares.
Okay, so it's like supply and demand.
Exactly. And they did all this while still having over 850 crores in cash.
Yeah, they're sitting on a pile of cash, which makes you wonder, what are they going to do with all that money? Buy other companies, invest in new tech, give it back to shareholders?
That's a question a lot of investors are asking right now. It's definitely something to watch.
For sure. Now, speaking of things to watch, let's peek at their subsidiaries, their side hustle companies.
Always interesting to see how those are performing.
Okay, first up, we've got Horwood Homewares in the UK.
And unfortunately, it seems they're facing some headwinds over there.
Yeah, their sales are down both for the quarter and the whole first half of the year, and that's impacted their EBITDA, which, remember, tells us how profitable their operations are.
Right. The UK economy is not doing great right now. People are being cautious with their spending, so it's a tough environment for them.
Yeah, even though they're trying to be more efficient, it's just a tough market.
Exactly.
Then there's Ultrafresh Modular Solutions, their Indian subsidiary focused on modular kitchens. They're also seeing a dip in sales, which they blame on delays in construction projects.
It's worth noting that despite these challenges, they're still expanding their network of studios, which suggests they're optimistic about the future of that business.
Okay, so they're playing the long game there.
It seems
They're also working on keeping costs down and improving their profitability. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. We looked at the overall economy, PDK's specific challenges, and dug into their actual numbers. What are your thoughts so far? Anything jumping out at you?
what strikes me is that despite everything, they're still eking out growth domestically. That speaks to the power of their brand and the demand for their products in a market as massive as India. I mean, they're an iconic brand over there.
Yeah, I mean, they're practically synonymous with pressure cookers in India.
Exactly.
But yeah, they've got a mix of good and bad news going on. Now we got to look ahead. What does TTK itself say about the future?
Well, they seem pretty optimistic about the Indian economy in general. They're banking on the rural economy, bouncing back, continued growth in manufacturing, and the government's initiatives to boost the economy.
So they're seeing a silver lining, even with those pesky commodity prices and increased competition.
Exactly. They're not blind to the challenges, but they're also highlighting their commitment to efficiency and cost control. You know, trying to protect those profit margins, which we know are under pressure.
It's like a balancing act, right? Acknowledge the problems, but stay focused on solutions.
Right, and they're not just talking, they're putting their money where their mouth is. They've got 96 new products lined up for launch in Q3 alone.
Whoa, that's a lot of new stuff.
Uh-huh.
Clearly, they're not slowing down on the innovation front.
Definitely not. And they're also looking to expand their exports, which makes sense considering the potential for growth in other countries.
So it's a mix of playing defense and offense, protecting their home turf, while also looking for new territory to conquer. What a whirlwind, right?
Absolutely. Before we move on, I'm curious what stood out to you from all of this. Any initial impressions of TTK Prestige's current position and their future prospects?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. It's a mixed bag, but they're clearly fighters. They're not letting the challenges paralyze them. Instead, they're adapting, innovating, and making bold moves like that share buyback.
It's going to be fascinating to see how these decisions play out over the next year. Will they be enough to keep them at the top of their game?
That's the big question, isn't it? We've covered a ton of ground in this first part of our deep dive, but there's still more to unpack. We'll pick up right where we left off in part two.
We've been talking numbers and strategies, but it's easy to forget there are actual people behind all this.
Right. We've thrown around terms like EBITDA and SKUs, but at the end of the day, it's about someone walking into a store or browsing online for a new pressure cooker.
Exactly. So let's shift gears and think about the average consumer for a bit. Remember those rising commodity prices we talked about? Well, those could mean higher prices for consumers down the line. TTK Prestige is trying to offset that by becoming more efficient, but they can only do so much.
So is it like saying, hey, that shiny new pressure cooker you've been eyeing, it might cost you a bit more now?
Unfortunately, that's a real possibility. But it's not all doom and gloom. Let's talk about those strategic initiatives, like expanding their prestige exclusive retail chain that can actually improve the shopping experience for customers.
I mean, isn't it just another store?
It's more than that. They have more control over how the brand is presented. They can showcase their products better, offer more personalized service, and create a more appealing shopping environment. It's a way to stand out from the crowd.
It's like they're saying, come on, experience the world of TTK Prestige.
Exactly. And that can lead to stronger brand loyalty.
Mm.
People will remember that positive experience. Now, let's not forget about innovation. They're launching a ton of new products. What kind of cool stuff can we expect to see on the shelves?
Yeah, 72 new SKUs, if I remember correctly. And SKUs U, by the way, stands for Stock Keeping Unit, which is a fancy way of saying a unique product. So what are these new products?
Well, they're really pushing the boundaries with their appliances. Think functionality, like appliances that do more than one thing. For example, they've launched a new air fryer that also bakes, roasts, and grills.
Oh, yeah, those all-in-one appliances are all the rage these days.
Right. They're perfect for people who want convenience and versatility in their kitchens. And we're also seeing a lot of focus on smart appliances, things you can control with your phone or even integrate with other smart home systems.
So they're catering to both the tech-savvy and the practical cook.
Exactly. They're trying to cover all their bases now. Let's zoom back out to the bigger picture. Remember how we talked about India's economic growth being driven by a recovering rural market and more people spending money? Well, TTK Prestige is trying to ride that wave.
They're not just waiting for things to happen, they're actively trying to be part of the action. How are they
Yeah.
doing that?
Their focus on reaching those rural markets is key. Remember, we talked about how those markets got hit by microfinance problems and rising food prices. Well, TTK Prestige is trying to overcome those challenges by developing products and distribution strategies specifically designed for those areas.
So it's like they're saying, hey, rural consumers, we see you, we understand your needs, and we've got products just for you.
Exactly. And that kind of focused approach could really pay off. It shows they're not just thinking about big cities, they're thinking about all of India.
It's like a multi-pronged attack. They're addressing the challenges, playing to their strengths, and looking ahead to future trends.
Precisely. And that kind of agility is essential in today's fast-paced world. Speaking of looking ahead, one thing that jumped out at me from the report was their emphasis on long-term strategy. They even hired a global consulting firm to help them map out the future.
Yeah, that's a pretty big deal, especially considering they've got all these immediate fires to put out. What do you think they're aiming for? What's their grand vision?
Well, we can only speculate for now, but we do have some clues. They're pouring money into innovation, expanding their retail footprint and exploring new markets. Maybe they want to become a global brand, not just an Indian one. Imagine seeing TTK prestige products in kitchens all over the world.
That's a pretty bold ambition,
Right.
but hey, why not dream big?
Exactly. And they have the foundation to build on. They're already a household name in India, and they have a proven track record of bringing new and innovative products to market.
And let's not forget, they've got that giant pile of cash to help them achieve their goals.
Right. That financial firepower gives them options that many companies can only dream of. They could make acquisitions, invest in new technologies, or simply double down on their existing strategies.
It's like they're holding all the cards.
Now, while we're on the topic of perspectives, it's important to remember that TTK Prestige isn't just a name on a report. It's made up of real people, employees, suppliers, distributors, and of course, the millions of customers who use their products every day.
It's easy to get lost in the numbers and forget about the human side of things, but it's crucial to consider how TTK Prestige's decisions impact all these stakeholders.
Absolutely. What do these financial results mean for the livelihoods of their employees? How about the sustainability of their supply chain? And are they truly meeting the needs of their customers? These are all important questions to consider.
It reminds us that business isn't just about profits. It's about people.
Exactly. It's about making a positive impact on the world.
Speaking of impact, one thing that caught my eye in the report was TTK Prestige's acknowledgement of the changing consumer landscape in India. They talked about the growing demand for those nice-to-have, durable goods and the rise of a new generation of consumers with different preferences and lifestyles.
It shows they're aware they can't just rely on their old ways. They need to adapt to stay relevant and competitive. It's like they're recognizing that the world is changing and they need to change with it.
It's a delicate balance, right? Honoring their heritage while embracing the future.
It is. It's like walking a tightrope, one wrong step, and it's all over. But if they can pull it off, they could be unstoppable.
So far, it seems like they're doing a pretty good job. They've got a solid brand, diverse products, strong finances, and a clear vision for the future.
But let's not forget those challenges. The competition is fierce, the global economy is unpredictable, and consumer preferences are constantly evolving. It's a recipe for both excitement and anxiety.
It's like a roller coaster ride, right?
Yeah.
You never know what's coming next, but you're strapped in for the ride.
That's a perfect analogy. And on that note, let's take a breather before the final part of our deep dive. We'll be back soon to wrap things up and leave you with some food for thought.
Okay, we're back for the final part of our deep dive into TTK Prestige.
Time to tie it all together.
Yeah, we've crunched the numbers, we looked at their strategies, and I think we even, pondered the meaning of pressure cookers a little bit.
Yeah, it could go deep.
So the big question is TTK Prestige on the upswing, or are they heading for a downfall?
I think like most things in life, it's not that simple. They're facing some serious challenges, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But they also have some major advantages working in their favor. It's a real tug-of-war.
Yeah, so let's break that down a bit for our listener. What are some of the key things you think they should take away from all of this?
Okay, well, first off, the Indian economy is still a bright spot in a somewhat shaky global economy.
Right.
And TTK Prestige is smack dab in the middle of that growth story, and
Yeah.
they've got a brand that's practically synonymous with quality and reliability in India.
They're like a household name.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That kind of brand power is incredibly valuable. It gives them a huge leg up on the competition. Plus, they really understand the Indian consumer, you know? They know what people want, what they need, and what they're willing to pay for.
But as we saw, they're not invincible, right? Those rising commodity prices are a real problem, and the competition from those online giants and these modern stores is only getting more intense.
Yeah, those are definitely threats they can't ignore, and they need to figure out how to revitalize that appliance segment. That slowdown is a bit concerning.
But they're not just, sitting back and letting the world pass them by.
Yeah.
They are trying to adapt and change.
Absolutely. That investment in long-term strategy, bringing in those extensive consultants, it shows they're serious about shaping their future and their focus on innovation, both with new products and new ways to reach customers. That's very encouraging.
Yeah, and don't forget about that mountain of cash they have.
Oh, yeah.
Gives them a lot of flexibility to make, strategic moves, whether it's acquisitions, investing in new technologies, or even just rewarding shareholders.
Yeah, it's a nice position to be in.
So what's your gut feeling? What's next for TTK Prestige?
Honestly, it's tough to say, but that's what makes it so exciting, right? Will they go on a shopping spree and buy up some smaller companies? Will they double down on R&D to create even more innovative products? Will they try to become a global powerhouse?
Yes, so many possibilities.
So many. And the answers will depend on a lot of things. The overall economic, climate, consumer trends, and of course the decisions made by TTK Prestige's leadership.
Like we're watching a movie and we don't know how it's going to end.
Exactly. What a cliffhanger.
So what should our listener keep an eye on in the coming months?
Okay, well, I'd say pay close attention to their product launches. Are those 96 new SKUs a hit? Are they attracting new customers? And how are they responding to the competition from online retailers and those modern stores? Are they finding ways to differentiate themselves and offer something unique? And of course, we got to keep an eye on their financial performance. Are they staying profitable despite rising costs? And what are they doing with all that cash?
Look, exactly. Those financial reports tell a story.
They do. So if you're invested in TTK Prestige, whether financially or just out of curiosity, stay tuned. This story is far from over.
It's a great reminder that business is never static. It's always evolving.
Well said. And as always, we encourage you to keep exploring, keep asking questions, and stay informed.
Until next time, happy investing.